The fabric tore with a sickening sound, and Maria watched helplessly as the delicate threads of her uniform and perhaps her entire future unraveled before her eyes. In that moment, standing in the marble hallway of the Bennett mansion, she understood that some things, once broken, can never be mended the same way again. But what she didn't know was that this single act of cruelty would reveal a truth so powerful it would shake the foundations of everyone present and remind them what it truly means to be human. Maria Rodriguez had worked at the Bennett estate for 3 years, arriving each morning at dawn to polish the floors that cost more than her entire childhood home. She moved through the sprawling mansion like a ghost, present but invisible, her hands scrubbing away the evidence of wealth while her own family struggled to make rent in their cramped apartment across town. The uniform she wore, a simple gray dress with white trim, was the nicest piece of clothing she owned. She'd bought it with her first paycheck, spending money she desperately needed because she wanted to look professional, to be worthy of the position that fed her 2 young daughters. Every morning she'd press that uniform with care, treating it like the treasure it was. It represented more than fabric and thread. It represented dignity, stability, and hope. The Bennett family consisted of Richard Bennett, a self-made millionaire who'd built his fortune in real estate, his elegant but distant wife, Catherine, and their only son, Marcus. At 23, Marcus had never worked a day in his life. He drifted through the mansion like a prince in his kingdom, spending his father's money with the casual indifference of someone who'd never questioned where it came from. Maria had learned to avoid Marcus when possible. There was something in his eyes, a cruel amusement when he looked at the staff, as if they existed solely for his entertainment. She'd seen him reduce the gardener to tears over a flower bed, watched him throw his breakfast at the cook because the eggs weren't perfect. Each time she'd witnessed the flash of shame in Richard Bennett's eyes before he turned away, choosing silence over confrontation with his son. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Maria was carrying a basket of fresh linens up the curved staircase when Marcus appeared at the top landing. He was holding his phone, laughing at something on the screen, a cocktail in his other hand despite the early hour. She pressed herself against the railing to let him pass, making herself small, invisible. But Marcus stopped. "Well, well," he said, his words slightly slurred. "If it isn't our dear Maria, always scurrying around like a little mouse." "Excuse me, Mr. Bennett," Maria said quietly, trying to continue past him. He blocked her path. "What's the rush? Don't you want to chat? Or are we not good enough to talk to?" His voice had taken on that dangerous edge she recognized, the tone that preceded cruelty. "I have work to do, sir, please." "Please?" he mimicked, laughing. "So polite, so humble. Do you know how boring that is?" He reached out and plucked at her uniform collar. "This is hideous, by the way. You look like you're from the 1950s. Maria's heart hammered in her chest. "It's appropriate for my position." "Your position?" Marcus sneered. He grabbed the collar harder, pulling her forward. "Your position is whatever I say it is. You work for us, for me." "Let go, please," Maria whispered, her voice shaking. Instead, Marcus yanked harder. The sound of tearing fabric filled the air like a scream. Maria stumbled backward as her uniform ripped from collar to waist, the careful stitching she'd repaired so many times finally giving way. Buttons scattered across the marble floor like fallen tears, bouncing and rolling into corners. For a moment, time stopped. Maria clutched the torn fabric to her chest, her face burning with humiliation. The basket of linens lay scattered at her feet, pristine white sheets now touching the floor she'd spent an hour polishing. Marcus laughed. "Oops, guess you'll need a new uniform. Maybe try something from this century." What he didn't see was his father standing at the bottom of the staircase. Richard Bennett stood frozen, his briefcase still in his hand. Having just returned from an early meeting, he'd watched the entire scene unfold, heard every word. And in that moment, seeing Maria's dignity stripped away as surely as her uniform had been torn, something inside him finally broke. "Marcus." His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of mountains. Marcus turned, his smirk faltering slightly. "Oh, hey, Dad, didn't see you there. Just having a little fun? Get down here now!" The tone made everyone freeze. Even Catherine appeared from the morning room, drawn by something unfamiliar in her husband's voice. 2 other staff members had emerged from various doorways, witnesses to whatever was about to unfold. Marcus descended the stairs with practiced nonchalance, but Maria could see the uncertainty in his movements. Richard Bennett's face had transformed into something she'd never seen before. Not anger exactly, but something deeper and more terrible. Grief. "Maria," Richard said gently, not taking his eyes off his son. "Please wait in my study. You'll find my wife's credit card in the top desk drawer. I want you to go to whatever store you choose and buy yourself 3 new uniforms, the best quality you can find, and keep whatever you don't spend." "Sir, I couldn't possibly—" "Please," his voice cracked. "Please just do this for me." Maria gathered the scattered linens with shaking hands and hurried away, still clutching her torn uniform, but she didn't go to the study. Instead, she waited just around the corner, unable to move, unable to leave. What she heard next would echo in her heart for the rest of her life. "Do you know what I saw just now?" Richard said to his son. "I saw you destroy the one thing a woman owns that makes her feel professional and worthy. I saw you humiliate someone who works harder in a single day than you've worked in your entire life." "Dad, it's just a uniform. We can buy her 10. "It's not about the uniform," Richard's voice thundered through the mansion. "It's about what you've become, what I've allowed you to become." The room fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock. "When I was your age," Richard continued, his voice dropping, "I was working 3 jobs to support my mother after my father died. I cleaned offices at night, unloaded trucks at dawn, and went to community college in between. I wore the same pair of pants for 2 years because I couldn't afford another. And I pressed them every single night, because dignity isn't about what you wear. It's about how you carry yourself, how you treat others." "Here we go with the poor childhood stories." "No," Richard's voice cut through like steel. "You will listen to me now, Marcus, because this is the last time I'm going to say this. I built this fortune believing it would give my son a better life than I had. But I was wrong. I didn't give you a better life. I gave you an easier one. And in doing so, I created someone I'm ashamed to call my son." Maria heard Catherine gasp. "You know what Maria does with her paycheck?" Richard continued. "She supports 2 daughters as a single mother. She sends them to school with clean clothes and full bellies. She volunteers at their school on weekends despite working here 6 days a week. She has more character in her torn uniform than you have in your entire designer wardrobe. So what, you love the maid more than your own son?" Marcus's voice was defensive now, childish. "I love what you could be," Richard said, and Maria heard the break in his voice. "I love the son I hoped I was raising, but I don't like who you are right now." "And whose fault is that?" "Mine, because I gave you everything except the one thing you needed, consequences." The silence that followed was suffocating. "You have a choice," Richard said finally. "Starting today, you will work. A real job, one I won't interfere with. You'll earn your own money, pay your own bills. You'll learn what it means to be tired at the end of the day because you've actually contributed something to the world. You'll apologize to every member of our staff that you've ever mistreated. And you'll mean it, or what? Or you leave this house with nothing but the clothes on your back. And you never come back." Maria heard someone crying. Catherine, she realized. "You can't be serious," Marcus said, but his voice had lost its edge. "I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Because if I don't do this now, I'll lose you forever, not to distance, but to the kind of person who tears someone's uniform just because he can. And I love you too much to let that happen." The mansion seemed to hold its breath. "What's it going to be, son?" Maria didn't hear Marcus's answer because Richard appeared in the doorway where she stood, tears streaming down his own face. "Maria," he said gently, "I am so deeply sorry. For today, and for every day I stood by and let my son treat you and others with disrespect. You deserve better." "Everyone does." He handed her an envelope. "Inside is 6 months' salary and references that will get you any position you want, anywhere you want. If you choose to stay, you'll work directly with me, and I'll personally ensure you're treated with the respect and dignity you've always deserved. If you choose to leave, I'll understand completely." Maria opened her mouth, but no words came out. "And Maria?" Richard added. "Thank you." "For what, sir?" "For being the mirror. I needed to finally see what I'd become, someone who valued peace over principle, comfort over courage. You reminded me that every person's dignity matters, and that sometimes love means being willing to lose everything to save what matters most. 3 months later, Maria still worked at the Bennett estate, but everything had changed. Marcus had taken a job at a nonprofit helping homeless veterans find housing. The first few weeks had been hell for him, the early mornings, the hard work, the lack of praise for simply showing up. But slowly, something had shifted. Maria had seen him carrying an elderly veteran's belongings to a new apartment, had heard the gentleness in his voice that she'd never known existed. One morning, Marcus approached her in the kitchen. "Maria," he said quietly, "I know I apologized before, but I don't think I really understood what I was apologizing for. Now I do. I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not just for the uniform, but for every moment I made you feel less than human." Maria looked into his eyes and saw something she'd never seen before: humility. "Thank you, Marcus," she said. "That means more than you know." That evening, as Maria prepared to leave, she found Richard in his study, looking at a photograph of his son from childhood. "He's going to be okay," Maria said softly. Richard looked up, his eyes bright. "We both are. You know what I've learned? The greatest gift we can give someone isn't money or comfort. It's the chance to become who they're meant to be, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." As Maria walked out into the evening air, her new uniform crisp and clean, she thought about the torn fabric that had changed everything. Sometimes things have to break before they can be rebuilt stronger. Sometimes it takes losing everything to find what truly matters. And sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to let someone fall, trusting that the landing will teach them how to stand on their own.